In this video, we are going to explain the TCP acceleration feature of the Bequant node.
Let's explain how acceleration metrics are generated. Each of these dots represent a download, and the objective is to measure non-accelerated downloads and compare the speeds with accelerated downloads. Bequant node randomly selects some downloads for not being accelerated. They will be the control group, and they compare the speeds of those non-accelerated downloads with an equivalent number of accelerated downloads. The rest of the downloads, of course, will be accelerated, and a normal setup is 99% of accelerated downloads with 1% remaining unaccelerated as a control group. What we do also in the analysis is to divide these samples in different categories based on the download size and the internet delay, the delay between the Bequant node and the internet content server. The idea is to have more homogeneous metrics to compare. So regarding download size, small downloads are up to 100 kilobyte, medium between 100 kilobyte and 1 meg, and large above 1 meg. In the case of internet delay, those thresholds are configurable, and we will see later on how to make the changes and adjust those values to the interconnectivity with the internet in your particular case. So for each of these 9 categories, we will do a calculation of the average speed of non-accelerated downloads, do the same with some accelerated downloads, and the comparison between the two will provide us with the acceleration percentage. And we will run a statistical test to see whether the results are or not significant. Let's say that the difference can be explained by a real acceleration and not just by the randomness of the values that we get. Also, we have another classification based on the access delay. This is the delay between the Bequant node and the client through the access network. Normally it's not used, but if you have different technologies in your access network that can be characterized based on the size of the access delay, then there is a configurable threshold, the RTTA, the access delay threshold, that can be set up just to do this split. And you can get the same values you get for a small access delay, get them also for the large. And finally, we've been talking about downloads so far, but same thing applies to uploads on the other direction from clients up to the internet. The same analysis is done. These 9 categories are also obtained, and you can get individual values also for uplink traffic. The Bequant system will display these metrics that will be seen later on in this video, but to give you an example, these are instantaneous average speeds without and with acceleration for the different traffic categories. To make changes to the TCP acceleration setup, you go to TCP acceleration configuration acceleration. Right now it's at 0%, meaning no acceleration is taking place. You will normally set this up to 99%, so randomly 99% of TCP connections will be accelerated, and the remaining 1% will be the control group that is used in generating acceleration metrics. As you can see, there is very little settings that you need to set up. The TCP stack is tuned and will adjust dynamically to whatever is needed. So apart from whether enable or disable acceleration, there are also a number of threshold parameters used in the acceleration metrics. So we have the internet side RTT, so the delay between the Bequant node and the internet servers, and there are 2 thresholds. One, the small one between small delays and medium delays, and the large one between medium and large. By default, they are set to 10 and 60 milliseconds, but of course they can be changed to whatever value makes sense in your particular network, given the interconnectivity that you have with the internet. So let's say change that to 20 and 70 milliseconds, for example, and apply the changes. So the new thresholds will apply. That will reset, by the way, the metrics. Every time you change the thresholds, it will start calculating anew. And finally, in case you have an access network with different technologies, or that can be characterized based on the access delay, this is a threshold that you can also define here. And normally is not used, it's set to 0 by default, but if you have a network with these very characterizable sections, is another threshold that you can use. The Bequant node shows acceleration metrics to see the performance of the feature. The first one is in TCP acceleration, TCP speed, and shows average speed per TCP connection with and without acceleration in the downlink traffic direction and uplink. If we go to downlink, in dark gray is without acceleration, the average speed, and in red, the average speed with acceleration. And it shows the increase in the speed due to acceleration, for example, plus 21%. If it's not significant because of lack of samples or lack of statistical significance, it's a so. 9 categories are shown based on the download size: small up to 100 kilobyte, medium between 101 meg, large more than 1 meg, and then the RTTI, the delay towards the internet, small, medium, and large based on the threshold that we saw previously that are configurable. You can see the evolution over time of those average speeds. Going to statistical speed, up to 1 month, let's say 1 week, you can see there the evolution over time with ups and downs due to the change in network conditions. You can scope in some time interval within the week if you want. And the same for acceleration. So you can see for the periods where there was available an acceleration factor, is shown for the same 9 categories that we mentioned based on download size and delays towards the internet. You can see up to 1 month, let's say last week, of acceleration factors. You can see here the increases. So in some cases over 100%. And that's all. Another setting regarding TCP acceleration is blacklisting. So you go to TCP acceleration configuration blacklist. This is where you can specify IP addresses or IP address ranges that will be excluded from acceleration. So let's say, for example, that there is some specific group of users you don't want to accelerate for whatever reason, and that can be characterized by an IP range. Now new connections coming from those clients will not be accelerated while those clients remain here. Also, you can do the same with a specific server IP address. So let's say that you have some service that doesn't need acceleration for whatever reason. You can just add it to the list here. You can delete them just pressing the dustbin icon, and you can clean up the blacklist when you want. And again, new connections will be accelerated. So changes will apply to the new connections. The ones already established will remain in whatever state of acceleration or non-acceleration they were at the beginning. More videos are available in our YouTube channel and website.